Hello, this is Mark Silverman, managing member and founder of Silverman & Associates, and I'm also a certified financial planner professional. I want to welcome you to the Saving with Silverman podcast. I'm glad you're here. Each week, we'll discuss different financial planning topics because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
Welcome to Saving with Silverman, the show that stars Mark Silverman, your certified financial planner, professional, founder, and managing member of Silverman & Associates in Tucson. And glad you decided to join us today. First off, right off the bat, if you'd like to get in touch with Mark's office, call 520-333-7601. If you'd rather, text that number, 520-333-7601. Mark Silverman's been doing this for a very long time, helping a lot of folks out there, and certainly can help you too. You can learn a lot just by listening to this radio show from the things that Mark says, but better yet, to come in and have a talk face-to-face. 520-333-7601. You can come in and do that with absolutely no obligation and no cost. And Mark, good to be with you again today. Hope you've had a great week.
Ron, always happy to be here. Things are going well. It's starting to cool off a little bit, so this gets to be a good time of the year. A lot of people start coming back, and it starts getting busy again.
A lot of interesting things to talk about in today's show, and I thought maybe today we would lead off with retirement variables. If the variables were the same for everybody, retirement planning would be much simpler. There would be a cookie-cutter solution out there, but we all know that's not true. The fact that everybody is different is what makes it fun and challenging. And I thought maybe you could take a moment to explain why the answers to these questions I'm going to ask are different for absolutely everybody. Number one, how much income will we need? You can't really give a blanket answer to that question, can you?
You know, it varies from person to person. You know, we've seen, and having worked with so many different people, it just depends. You know, they say you need 70 to 80% of your working income in retirement. We've seen many cases where people spend just as much as they were making in retirement in their working years. And then we've seen people that have actually been on the other side of it where they spent more in retirement. But it really comes down to what you're going to do in retirement. You know, do you have travel plans? Are there any hobbies? Are you playing golf? You know, those sorts of things. Are you still going to have a mortgage in retirement? We have some of our clients have mortgages. Some of them have all the debt paid off. So, you know, those are the sorts of things that we really need to understand. And again, everybody's situation is different.
All right. How much will we pay in taxes? You can't really give a stock answer to that one either, can you?
Well, it's a moving target. You know, I think most people will understand that taxes are going up, and we've seen them, relatively speaking, they're still low. But if you look and see what's happened in the last couple of years, they are starting to creep up. And with our national debt growing at a record pace, you know, logic would tell you that, you know, we're going to probably see tax rates come up. We've got to pay for it somehow. It's not going to pay itself off. So it just depends on, you know, what kind of sources of income do you have? Are you lucky enough to have a pension? You know, if you have Social Security, depending on your income, you may or may not be paying taxes on that. So those are certain things. What are your deductions? You know, a lot of people don't have deductions in retirement, especially if you don't have a mortgage, maybe the kids are gone, you might not have a lot of deductions out there. So those are certain things that we can do through tax planning to try to help and figure out where you're going to be tax-wise and do some projections.
If you're listening to the show for the first time, this show is all about retirement, making sure you're ready for it, making sure you don't outlive your money. And this next question here is key to that. How long should we expect to live? Basically, people are living longer these days, right, Mark?
Absolutely, Ron. You know, I'll ask people, I'll say, you know, if somebody is born today versus born, you know, 10 years from now, who has a longer life expectancy? And we keep seeing that they're raising the mortality tables because people are living longer. There's better drugs, better medicine, those sorts of things. And so, you know, that's something that we're all dealing with. So when we're running financial plans for people, we are looking to assuming there's normal life expectancy, you're running those plans out to sometime in the mid-90s. And in some cases where there is a lot of longevity, you know, we've even run plans out to age 100. So, you know, that's just the way things are going. And you want to make sure that your money is going to last you and your spouse's lifetime, and you're not going to outlive your money.
If you would like to get in touch with Mark Silverman's office, call this number, 520-333-7601. You can call or text if you prefer that, 520-333-7601. Also, check out the website, savingwithsilverman.com. That's savingwithsilverman.com. Once again, that number, 520-333-7601. We're talking about retirement variables, and can't stress enough how different everybody's situation is. Everybody is unique. When should I start Social Security? when someone asks you that, I mean, that answers depends on who that person is and
It
what
does.
situation it is.
And like you said, Ron, it really comes down to life expectancy. And so assuming you have a normal life expectancy, mortality tables and those sorts of things, those can be a good reference point. If there's a lot of longevity in your family, like I mentioned earlier, we'll take that into account. But we actually have software that we can do, and we'll run this for our clients and show them, how to maximize Social Security, because for a lot of people, it's the only sort of pension that you're going to have. And we can show you, does it make sense to take it early at 62? Do you take it at full retirement age, which is, somewhere between 66 to 67 for most people, or do you max it out at age 70? The caveat there is you get 8% guaranteed per year up until age 70 to get that. The only place that you can get 8% guaranteed these days is through the government. So in a lot of plans that we're doing, we're trying to get people to take it at age 70, assuming they have a long life expectancy. If you don't have a long life expectancy, then you probably want to take it earlier. But that's something we can help with as well.
Here's a question that will have a lot of variables. I know that because we have different risk tolerance depending on our age and what the circumstances are. How much money should be at risk when we retire?
And that's going to vary depending on when you retire. If somebody that's retiring at age 60 might have a different scenario than somebody that's maybe retiring at age 70 or age 75, that sort of thing. So it's going to come down to two things. One is your comfort level. So we do a great job of analyzing how much risk you're comfortable taking. And we can all, manage upside, downside, the more upside than the more downside and those sorts of things. So we want to make sure we know what your comfort level is. And two, looking at your actual financial goals, how much you may need in retirement. What do you want to do in retirement? All these sorts of things. We want to make sure that your risk tolerance is appropriate and matches that's going to keep you on track to achieve the goals that you've set out to achieve. So once we take those two things in consideration, we can understand that and really answer those sorts of questions and make sure you're taking the right amount of risk and that you're comfortable taking one, and two, that's going to keep you on track to achieve your goals.
Mark, I know that there are a lot of people out there listening to the show right now, and they're thinking, I think I'm going to go ahead and make that phone call to Mark Silverman's office. What happens when they walk into your door?
Sure, Ron. So whether you're a first-time listener to the show or you've heard me for a long time, if anything I've said makes sense or resonates with you, this is now your chance to come in and have a conversation with me in my office to go through this process we call the financial physical. And you actually do get to meet with me. I don't pawn you off on somebody else. I can assure you I will not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. I repeat, this is not a sales meeting. And I'm very familiar with some of the other shows on this station, and I understand what they're trying to offer you. This is totally different. We're not here trying to sell you something. Rather, we're going to discuss your values and goals in a way, honestly, you probably never have. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. So whether you're still working or already retired, this is a great opportunity to see what it looks like to work with someone who's actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interest at all times. And as part of the financial physical, we will discuss your cash reserves, debt if you have any, insurance, all types, and how to best allocate your assets. And we'll even benchmark where you are now financially compared to where you want to be, so you have an even better perspective of what's required to achieve your goals for the reasons that are important to you. This will become the foundation for developing a plan that gives you the highest probability of making that happen. This meeting will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you probably are aware, I am a certified financial planner professional, and I believe the only local one here on the radio in Tucson, and the going hourly rate to me with a CFP such as myself can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. We try our best to help everyone, however our slots do fill up quickly. So I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting for the next 5 people that contact us right now. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601. You can call that number, or you can send a text to that number with your contact information, and a member of Mark's team will get back with you, and you can come in and have a conversation. No obligation, no cost. 520-333-7601 is that number. One more time, 520-333-7601. 333-7601. Mark Silverman is the founder and the managing member of Silverman and Associates in Tucson. He has clients from all over southern Arizona. Could certainly help you. I hope you will get in touch and you can come in and have a face-to-face talk with Mark Silverman. You'll enjoy getting to know him as well. I'm Ron Stutz along with Mark Silverman. There's more coming up on today's show, Saving with Silverman.
Planning for retirement shouldn't be a mystery. So why is it so easy to get bogged down with financial terms and advisors who try to offer you a sales pitch? At Silverman and Associates, Mark Silverman and his team take pride in looking after their clients' best interests. Schedule a complimentary review of your situation. Call or text 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601.
Picture this. Your financial statements have come in the mail. What's going through your head as you open them up? Maybe all that financial jargon is flustering. Maybe the numbers are confusing, or maybe those red arrows are leaving you in a funk. Don't base your future on a monthly letter. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman. Learn what true financial planning really looks like.
Welcome back to Saving with Silverman. Ron Stutz here along with Mark Silverman at Silverman and Associates. And he, of course, is in Tucson, serving all of southern Arizona. Number to call or text is 520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. Mark can be reached that way. You can come in and you can have a conversation about your situation. It is time now for story time. Always look forward to this because Mark's going to tell us a story here. Tell us about a time, Mark, in your business when you said, never again will I ever do that. What did you decide that you'd never do again?
I would have to say, when I'm meeting with somebody the first time, if they're married, and Arizona's a community property state, Ron, that if both spouses aren't attending the meeting, I will not continue the meeting. In fact, we even let people know when they book the appointment. It's in the letter that we sent. In fact, I just had to send a gentleman home about a week or so ago who had showed up and his wife was going to exercise instead and didn't want to come. It's just so important. And, it's a relationship business, and I'm not going to take on a client if they're both not going to be there. And again, I've seen so many times where, let's say the husband handles things. They don't want to bring the wife. They don't want to bother her with it. But, in all likelihood, if you look at mortality tables, the husband's going to predecease the wife. And in that case, the wife's not going to know anything of what to do or who to talk to and that sort of thing. So I've seen it too many times where it's so important. So I don't even start a relationship unless both parties are there. And if it's not important enough for both of them to be there, we're not going to have the meeting. So I actually require to have a fiduciary responsibility too. So I'm just making sure that both parties are there, and we let everybody know and we disclose all that and remind people. So, that's probably what I'm very strong about that. I think we've sent probably 4 or 5 people home just this year alone of people who, we tell them, and only one of the two spouses show up to the meeting.
I certainly understand why you're so adamant about that, because it's so important for people to be on the same page, for the two spouses to be on the same page. And, no matter how well you explain it all, Mark, in your office, it's going to lose something in translation when he or she goes back home and tries to explain it to the other person. So I think that's a really good policy.
Exactly. And so, it's so important. And so, yeah, that's something I won't do again. And if I've had people get upset and say, well, if you don't want to just meet with me, then I'm not coming in with my spouse. Okay, that's fine. Not interested. So that it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah. That is Story Time with Mark Silverman here on Saving with Silverman. And there's more coming up on today's show in just a moment.
At Silverman and Associates, we believe you deserve a financial plan that's customized to your situation. That's because no one strategy could possibly fit your unique needs and goals. From strategizing to execution, our goal is to give you undivided attention. Come in for a visit today and learn what it looks like to put your retirement dreams into action. Call or text 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601.
You finished school and worked hard to get your first job. You told yourself you'd save for retirement, but that old jalopy you bought when you were 16 broke down, so you bought a new one. You started to save, and soon you bought your first home. Then came pets, kids, and your world changed some more. You worked hard to provide for your family. You made sure your kids got a good education. You might be sending them to school right now. Or maybe it's the grandkids' turn. And of course, you're now making sure your parents are looked after. Through the years, you lovingly sacrificed for your family. Now it's time to take care of you. Love others well by taking care of yourself. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman to discover how to build a financial plan that'll continue providing for you and the ones you love for years to come.
Welcome back to Saving with Silverman. Ron Stutz along with Mark Silverman. And we talked about retirement variables on today's show. Coming up next, we're going to talk about retirement constants. First, let me tell you how you can get in touch with Mark Silverman's office. 520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. Call, or you can actually text that number if you like. 520-333-7601. Also, remember to check out the website, savingwithsilverman.com. Great website, by the way. And again, it's easy to remember, savingwithsilverman.com. Retirement constants. Some things are constants in life, and these aren't going to change. There are some factors that are different for everybody in retirement planning. Those are the variables that we discussed earlier. There are also constants that affect everyone, no matter what the specifics of your situation are. So, Mark, first of all, let's start with inflation. How do you plan around that particular constant?
Well, we use a 3% inflation rate in our practice. And so what that means is, and most people don't realize this, at a 3% inflation rate, you lose about a third of purchasing power every 10 years. And I'll repeat that. You lose a third of purchasing power every decade at a 3% inflation rate.
Wow.
So if you think about it, if somebody retires, let's say at age 60, and let's say their life expectancy is maybe 95, that's a 35-year retirement. Inflation is going to have a big impact. And even if somebody retires at 70 and they have a 25-year or even a 20-year life expectancy, it's still going to have an impact there. And that's just using inflation. We're not talking medical inflation, which is somewhere between 4.5% to 6%, depending on who you ask. And so, as we all know, at age, whatever that age may be, it might be age 80 or 85, medical inflation is going to have a huge impact on people's retirement because that's money that they're going to have to spend on those sorts of things. And so inflation's a big factor. Most people don't take it in consideration because they just look at their income streams, which most of them, unfortunately, are fixed, and how much they might be spending, and don't realize the impact of how things are going to cost more.
People have always said there are two things that are certain, death and taxes. I think there are actually more than that when it comes to retirement. One thing I've always said is the only thing constant is change. But let's talk about rising taxes. That's something that we all have to deal with, no matter what the situation.
Yeah, we've talked about this a lot. I mean, I think most people will agree with this national debt, the way it's going, it's not going to pay itself off. So unfortunately, that we're going to be the ones paying that tax, and taxes are going to be increasing. If you look where we are compared to where we've been as far as tax-wise, taxes are still relatively low. However, they have gone up the last couple of years, and unfortunately, I think that trend's going to continue. Nobody knows what's going to happen with all these new changes they're talking about, but we've got to figure out how to pay this debt off, and unfortunately, it's going to come down to us paying that debt off. And so I think that taxes are going to be here to stay, and unfortunately probably going to be increasing.
And another retirement constant, and this is not necessarily a bad thing, a lot of people think it is, market volatility.
Well, we've seen a lot more volatility these days than we have in the past, and I think volatility is here to stay, but it's not, necessarily always a bad thing. The markets will go up and down. You just hope they go up more than they do go down, but you shouldn't be taking more risk than you're comfortable taking. And I think that's the important thing to understand is if you know how much risk you're taking, then you could do a better job of understanding that risk and making sure you're not taking unwanted risk and you're not going to take a loss that you can't handle taking. You can't have your cake and eat it too, though. So you can't have any risk and then expect to get the returns of the market. I know there's people that sell particularly annuities that tell you when the markets go up, you go up with the market. When the markets go down, you don't lose anything. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. And so what we tell people is it's not the win, but the set of the sail. So we can help figure out what risk is a comfort level, because everybody needs some amount of risk in their portfolio. But as I think I mentioned earlier, the two important things that are important are to understand, one, what's your comfort level? And we do a very, very good job of understanding that and really looking at people's investments, and we can actually back test and show you how much risk you're taking versus how much risk you're currently comfortable taking. And then we can actually figure out where your goals are and making sure that the risk is appropriate to keep you on track to achieve your goals, because you do need some amount of risk in order to stay ahead of inflation and those sorts of things. So it's important that you understand that, but there's always risk, and sometimes there's lots of different risks. So it's important that you understand what those risks are and how exposed you are if you don't think you are exposed.
A couple more retirement constants to talk about in just a moment here, but let me remind you the number, 520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. You can call or text, and that'll put you in touch with Silverman and Associates in Tucson. And the number again, 520-333-7601. Healthcare is a retirement constant, and that's something that's going to affect all of us. A lot of people don't really think about it that much, but they certainly should.
And that's part of our planning process as we look at the healthcare. What's the strategy going to be? Especially if you retire before age 65, how's that health insurance situation going to be determined? I know here in Tucson, it's a real challenge here if you have to go out and get insurance on your own prior to age 65, until Medicare, of course. I think there's one option from what I've been told, and it's not a very good option. So, if you are retiring after age 65, or you have a spouse that's working that you can take their insurance, that always helps. But that's one thing that you need to consider. The other thing, too, is, what's the long-term care strategy? Do you need long-term care insurance? Are there other ways of doing it? Yes, there are. That's not just you have to buy long-term care insurance and that's the only option. There are many other options out there, but you need to address that, whether you decide to self-insure, which some people can do, or you decide to use a traditional long-term care policy, or there's some annuities out there that offer some long-term care benefits. But one of my favorites right now is using life insurance, a universal life policy that has long-term care benefits. And so that can cover those costs. And so you're kind of leveraging those dollars to cover those sorts of things. And it's not use it or lose it. You still have to qualify and those sorts of things. But what's the strategy? And at least have those conversations. Because as I mentioned earlier, healthcare, the number we use in our practice is 4.5% for medical inflation. But I've seen numbers as high as 6%, which unfortunately, once you hit age 80, 85, it's probably going to be a concern for most people, because you're going to be spending quite a bit of your retirement income on those sorts of things.
Ouch, either way. And one more retirement constant here. They say that nothing in life is free. Fees and commissions. You got to think about those as well.
Well, nothing is free. So whether you're doing it yourself or you're working with someone, you still are paying fees and commissions in a lot of cases. Hopefully it's fees rather than commissions. But there's a lot of hidden charges that people aren't aware of. I think one of the biggest culprits is mutual funds. There's lots of hidden fees and expenses in mutual funds, and most people aren't aware of those. Even if you're doing it yourself, there's a lot of those fees. There's a great article, and I've mentioned this before, called The Real Cost of Owning a Mutual Fund. It was in Forbes a couple of years ago. You can Google it. I think it does a great job of explaining the hidden fees and expenses in mutual funds. I'm not a huge fan of using mutual funds. I think there's lower cost options that are better out there, and I'm happy to discuss that with anybody that's interested. But you need to understand what you're paying, and it's not what it costs, it's what it's worth. So hopefully what you're paying for, you're getting. So if you're working with an advisor, hopefully they're doing a great job for you, putting your interests first. And on the other note, maybe I hope you're meeting with them on a regular basis, not just to keep you abreast of what's going on with the market, but to find out what's going on with you, to make sure that you're okay and that your investments are suitable for your situation as your needs evolve and that sort of thing. So again, nobody works for free, including us, but you should have an idea what you're paying, and you hopefully should be getting value for what you are paying.
Mark, I'm an average listener. I'm sitting at home right now listening to the show, and I'm thinking, I'm going to go ahead and call Mark Silverman. What happens when I do that?
Sure, Ron. So just like you get a second opinion on your health, why wouldn't you get a second opinion on your wealth? So whether you're do-it-yourself or already working with someone, this is now your chance to come in and go through this process with me we call the financial physical. Do you know what your investments are costing? We just mentioned that. If you're still working, are you on track to have the type of retirement you've always envisioned? Or if you're already retired, do you know if you or your spouse are at risk of running out of money while trying to maintain your current lifestyle? I can assure you, I will not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. I repeat, this is not a sales meeting. In this initial meeting, we'll address issues of importance to you, provide an overall view of your situation, and give you some general advice on what needs to be completed. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. So whether you're still working or retired, this is a great opportunity to see what it looks like to work with someone who's actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interest at all times. This meeting will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you probably are aware, I am a certified financial planner professional, and I believe the only one local here on the radio in Tucson, and the going hourly rate to meet with a CFP such as myself can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. Just as you want to reach a healthy life from a physical standpoint, you also want to reach and maintain great financial health. So our financial physical is just what the doctor ordered. We try our best to help everyone. However, our slots do fill up quickly. So I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting for the next 5 people that contact us right now. Please don't procrastinate because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601. You can call or text to that number, 520-333-7601. Mark Silverman can put your portfolio through a financial physical, make sure it's up to the test to survive and thrive in your retirement years. 520-333-7601. You're listening to Saving with Silverman. I'm Ron Stutz along with Mark Silverman, and there's more coming up after this.
It's time to get to know Mark Silverman just a little bit better here on Saving with Silverman.
You're listening to Saving with Silverman with Mark Silverman, of course, the star of our show. I'm Ron Stutz, and let me just ask you a quick question here, Mark. This is our Getting to Know You segment, everybody. What TV channel does not exist but should exist, in your opinion?
Something that doesn't have commercials, for sure. Probably something that doesn't have fake news, Actually, probably something that doesn't have any news would probably be a good thing. And probably a show with me on it, right?
Oh, yeah. 24/7.
The Saving with Silverman TV show.
Yeah.
We can work on that. I watch mostly sports on TV, and I try to avoid a lot of the news lately, it seems like.
Yeah, it's kind of depressing if you follow it closely.
It is. News channels don't seem to like to report good news. They just like to report bad news.
And there's so many bad things happening right now with all these weather disasters and the mass shooting we had and everything else.
That's true.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of places to catch on to the negativity. So
that's
probably
true.
Something that's more positive.
Well,
a news station with no commercial that only shows positive stories.
It only shows Saving with Silverman and Mark Silverman 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Exactly. We've got to come up with a lot of content.
That's for sure. Well, that is our Getting to Know You segment, and Mark Silverman and I will be back in just a moment.
Mark Silverman is a lifelong Arizonan, and his firm is based right here in Tucson. When you come in for a visit, you can expect someone who's familiar with your community. At Silverman & Associates, our relationship with you is most important to us. We want to build you a financial plan that's unique to your goals. No generic products, no corporate red tape, just friendly folks looking to give you a comprehensive approach to retirement planning. Come in for a visit today and let us help you build a meaningful retirement. Call or text 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601.
Have you ever heard that story about the grasshopper and the ant? The one where the grasshopper fails to plan in the spring and almost starves to death in the winter? Learn from that. Don't wait until it's too late to get your finances in order. Start your path to a rewarding retirement today. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman.
Welcome back to Saving with Silverman. Ron Stutz here along with the amazing Mark Silverman. Mark's been helping so many folks over a very long period of time with their retirement planning, and he can certainly help you. Let me tell you the number to get in touch, 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601. Call that number. And Mark has found that a lot of people like to send texts instead, and it's convenient. A lot of people do that these days, so certainly text to that number as well if you're more comfortable doing that, 520-333-7601, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life. Mark Silverman is the guy you need to see. Let's talk about retirement without regrets today, Mark. I thought we could talk about some things that you can do to avoid having financial regrets in retirement. And I know that you always guide folks and you can help them from making those mistakes that can't be righted. If they make a wrong decision, it's really hard to come back from that sometimes. Number one on the list here, don't make any sudden decisions. Sometimes you need to just stop and think about things before you move in one direction or another.
That's a good point, Ron. It really is a process. I mean, retirement is scary for a lot of people, and retirement means different things to different people as well. Some people may just be slowing down. Maybe some people are going to retire and pull the plug completely, but some people may want to continue working or doing something different. There's certainly nothing wrong with any of those different options, but it's important that you plan appropriately and make sure that you have a well thought out plan, looking at all the different things. Are you going to have enough income to last your life expectancy? What's the healthcare situation? Is your income going to be increasing, keep up with inflation? What are you going to be doing in retirement? How much money you're going to need? There's lots of different things, and that's really what we do, is help guide people and answer the questions that they have, as well as bring up questions that they haven't thought of to ask. Ron, I'm sure you've heard the phrase, learn from your mistakes. Well, I found it's cheaper to learn from other people's mistakes. So seeing other people go through this process, some better than others, we really try to guide our clients in the best possible way to give them the right advice that's going to put them in the best possible position so they don't have any, try to minimize the mistakes as much as possible. And so that's what we try to bring to the relationship.
Mark, I know you've been doing this a long time and you've seen all kinds of different scenarios. And I'm sure this next one I'm going to mention here is something you've been able to save a lot of people from doing who came in to have a conversation with you. Don't jump into investments that you don't understand. You're so good at breaking things down, making people understand them.
Well, Ron, what we find is so many people are working with other advisors who I use that term loosely. When you really delve deep into it, they're really financial salespeople. Mm-hmm. Anybody that's willing to just try to sell you an investment or insurance product without really doing the planning and really understanding what you need and understanding your complete situation, it'd be like a doctor recommending a drug without knowing anything about you. And if they're not willing to put the time in and understand what your goals and objectives are, run the numbers to make sure before you even get into what investments you should buy, to make sure that you have a solid plan, it's really premature to make any investment recommendations. So we don't work like that. Unfortunately, most people in our industry do. And it's really a process that we find doesn't benefit people. So that's why we've really evolved in what we're doing and really focusing on the planning first before we get into the specifics of what you should be invested. But a lot of people that meet with us really don't understand, are not experts in this thing, and we understand that. But you got to go with your gut. If something doesn't make sense to you or doesn't seem right, do not do it. I can't stress that enough. Too many people have come into the office where they've been sold a bill of goods, didn't realize what they had, or maybe they did realize what they had and need help getting out. Sometimes we can help, sometimes we can't. So it just depends.
Mark Silverman is a certified financial planner professional, the founder and managing member of Silverman and Associates. And it's so important to work with a professional. You're getting ready to retire. You need to make sure you do things right. Work with a professional like Mark Silverman. Right, Mark?
Exactly. I mean, you want to work with a professional and somebody that's going to put your interests first. Not only that, I'll say this, somebody that's a fiduciary that's required to put your interests first. And I can tell you the laws, they're talking about changing with the Department of Labor ruling, but it just got put on hold again. But I can tell you, if you're working with an insurance-only person, somebody that's just strictly trying to sell you annuities, or you're working with a stockbroker who's working for a big bank or brokerage firm, they don't have to put your needs first. They really don't. And so you need to work with someone who's required to be a fiduciary, somebody that works strictly for an RIA, registered investment advisor, like myself, or somebody that's a CFP, a certified financial planner, like myself. You can choose who invests your money for you or who you work with. Why not make sure that they have the credentials and do your due diligence on those people? But you want to make sure that they have a plan. It's got to make sense. And if they're getting into investments, specifically on the first meeting, without even asking a lot of questions, if they're just trying to sell you something, that should be a big red flag. And so I can't emphasize that enough, but it's important that you do understand that.
We're talking about retirement without regrets, and there's one thing that it just seems so obvious to me that, if you're traveling, if you're going across country, let's say, you need to actually have a plan on how you're going to get there. You don't just strike out on the road and just kind of go out there willy-nilly driving around. You need to have an actual plan for retirement, and Mark Silverman can help you put that together.
Exactly. So building financial plans is how we lead. We lead with planning. So that's the first step when we meet with people, is really discussing having a financial plan. And I've had people that have worked with advisors for years that don't have financial plans. They've just been investing. They don't really know where they stand. And of course, if they don't know, the advisor doesn't really know either. And so maybe the advisor has the best intentions, but they really haven't, if they haven't done the planning, they can't answer those questions. So you need to make sure, for not just your sake, but for your family's sake, you're doing everything possible to make sure that you're going to have the type of retirement that you want. Or if you don't want to retire, making sure that you have enough money to do the things that you want to do. And so it's important that everybody has a plan, in our opinion. And so really, if somebody's not willing to take the time to build a plan for you, all they're doing is selling you stuff, which may or may not benefit your situation. So again, it's so important, and that's why we stress working with someone who can build a financial plan that understands the pitfalls that can be in front of you that you may not even understand are there.
If you'd like to come in and have a conversation about all these things with Mark Silverman face to face, I'm going to give you the number in just a moment that you can call or text. But Mark, what happens to those folks who get in touch?
Sure, Ron. So whether you're a first-time listener to the show, you've heard me for a long time, if anything I've said makes sense or resonates with you, now this is your opportunity to come in and have a conversation with me. I don't pawn you off on somebody else. In my office to go through this process we call the financial physical. And I can assure you, I will not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. I repeat, this is not a sales meeting, just like I mentioned earlier. Rather, we're going to discuss your values and goals in a way, honestly, you probably never have. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. So whether you're still working or already retired, this is a great opportunity to see what it looks like to work with someone who's actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interest at all times. And as part of the financial physical, we will discuss your cash reserves, debt if you have any, insurance, all types, and how to best allocate your assets. And we'll even benchmark where you are now financially compared to where you want to be, so you have an even better perspective of what's required to achieve your goals for the reasons that are important to you. This will become the foundation for developing a plan that gives you the highest probability of making that happen. This meeting will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you are aware by now, I'm sure, I am a certified financial planner professional, and I believe the only local one here on the radio in Tucson. And the going hourly rate to me with a CFP such as myself can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. We try our best to help everyone. However, our slots do fill up quickly. So I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting to the next 5 people that contact us right now. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. You can call or text to that number, 520-333-7601. Why would you not like to come in and get the benefit of Mark Silverman's wisdom accumulated over the years? Because he's helped so many folks and can certainly help you. His office is in Tucson. Wherever you are in southern Arizona, Mark has clients from all over the area. So go ahead and call that number or text to that number right now. Don't even wait until the end of the show. 520-333-7601. That way you can make sure you get on the calendar and come in for that conversation. Our show is Saving with Silverman. Mark Silverman is the star of our show, and we'll have more coming up in just a moment.
Planning for retirement shouldn't be a mystery. So why is it so easy to get bogged down with financial terms and advisors who try to offer you a sales pitch? At Silverman & Associates, Mark Silverman and his team take pride in looking after their clients' best interests. Schedule a complimentary review of your situation. Call or text 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601.
You've got questions. We've got answers. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman.
Time now for the request line on Saving with Silverman. We have some great questions that have come in from Andrew, Lonnie, and Jay. We'll get to those in just a moment, but I wanted to tell you Mark Silverman's phone number so you can get in touch with him, 520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. Right off the bat here, you can call that number right now. You don't even have to wait until the end of the show, or you can shoot a text to that number with your contact information. Either way, you can come in and have a conversation with Mark, but go ahead and do it right away. 520-333-7601. In our request line segment today, Mark, we have a question from Andrew in Vail. And Andrew says, should I work with a younger financial advisor with less experience, or somebody who's my age but might retire at the same time I do? He doesn't say how old he is, but
Sure.
What's your response to that question?
Sure. Well, Andrew, that's a great question. You know, it's always an interesting one. It's kind of a catch-22. You don't want to work with someone who's too old that may retire before you do, and you don't want to work with somebody that's too young who's maybe just learning the business and maybe recommending investments that may not be suitable for you or haven't been tested. I think you want somebody that's kind of has a sweet spot where they have enough experience and they're going to still be around, so you don't have to keep looking to hire other advisors as you get older. I'm in my mid-40s, and so I have quite a bit of time left, but I've been doing this for 22, almost 23 years now. And so I feel like I've been doing this for a long time. But I think it's also important to work with someone who's willing to adapt and with the changes, because I find advisors that have been in the business a long time are still using investments that were around, in the 80s and 90s and haven't really adapted. And there's a lot better things, when I say better, meaning more consumer friendly than there used to be. Fees have come down, investments are hopefully more transparent than they used to be, and those sorts of things. But there's still advisors out there who are still selling variable annuities and loaded mutual funds, which is unfortunate. And so, again, I think it's important. It's a great question that you asked, but you want to have the right comfort level. You want somebody that's going to be around, hopefully that's going to make it, there's no guarantees, but hopefully it's going to make it through your life expectancy, you and your spouse's life expectancy, but somebody that keeps up with where things are going and is willing to adapt to do things that are in their client's best interest.
Well, Andrew, I would suggest, first of all, thanks for sending us a question, but I would suggest you come in and have a conversation with Mark Silverman, and maybe you might decide you don't want his help, and that's fine too, or maybe you might find it's the perfect match. So just call the number that I'll give you again in just a few moments here. Lonnie has a question. Lonnie lives in Marana. Lonnie says, I've been planning to sell some investment property to do some different investing for retirement, but I just discovered how much I'll owe in taxes because of the increase in the property value since I bought it. Do you think I should just hold on to it?
Well, Lonnie, that's a great question. And, in full disclosure, I'm not a CPA, so I'm not legally allowed to give you tax advice. But I think it depends on what you're planning on doing with it. Are you going to take that money and maybe reinvest into another type of property? Sometimes there's some things that you can do to minimize the taxes, or sometimes if it's at a high and you think the property is going to go down, or you just want to get rid of it, maybe it's time to do something different. So you want to weigh all those sorts of things. Taxes is certainly part of the situation, but you also want to not just fully base it on taxes. You want to look and see you're not going to sell it at a lower price, and yes, you'd pay lower taxes, but you're not making as much money. So I think it's a great question, but I think all those things really need to be taken in consideration, and I think it's important. And so I would, speak with a CPA. If you don't have one, certainly give us a call. We can maybe point you in the right direction. But hopefully you're working with somebody that can help you with the tax aspect and that sort of thing.
Well, Lonnie, that's a great question. And also to Andrew, 520-333-7601 is your number to call or text. That's 520-333-7601. If you'd like to get to know Mark a little bit better, then you can check out the website as well, savingwithsilverman.com. It's a really good website with a lot of information there. We have one more question today, Mark, from Jay in Green Valley. And Jay says, I'm worried about a market meltdown, but my brother, you see, is on the Trump train and thinks we have another few good years. What do you think?
Well, Jay, I certainly don't have a crystal ball. And certainly everybody that thought the market was, right after the election, everybody thought the market was going to go in the toilet, and nothing could be further from the truth. So I don't know. What I tell people is this is what I tell my clients is the markets are going to do what the markets are going to do. However, we are in the second longest bull market we've ever been in. So you need to understand that. If you're taking the appropriate amount of risk where you're not letting greed come into play, meaning you know the volatility, that you know what your downside exposure is, which most people don't. And then on the other side of it, the risk that you are taking is going to keep you on track for your goals. So depending on, I don't know if you're retired or still working, those sorts of things, but those need to be taken in consideration too. But just be prepared. Who knows if this is going to continue going for another year, 2, 3, 4, 5, who knows? But I can guarantee you one thing, we are one day closer to correction. So what I would do if I'm in your shoes is really understand your downside that you're exposed to. And 2, making sure that the risk that you're taking is going to keep you on track to achieve the goals that you've set out to achieve. We can help in that process. That's what we do with our clients. So if that's something that you want to discuss further, I'm happy to sit down with you and go through that process. But, don't get caught up to people who are, taking a bunch of risks that they didn't understand the risks that they were taking that got burnt in 2008. You don't want to be in that situation.
Jay, Lonnie, and Andrew all asking good questions on today's edition of Saving with Silverman. And there are a lot of other folks out there, Mark, with questions that they would like to ask you. And if they decide to call and set up a time to come in and visit, what do you have to offer that person?
Sure, Ron. So, I'm happy that we had some really good questions today. So now it's my chance to ask a question. So here's a simple one. And can you answer it as honestly and objectively as possible? Aside from the happy hellos and how's the family, and aside from the occasional lunch or golf game, I get it. I'm as much friends with so many of my clients, they become true friends over the many years. But I think the question has to be asked, especially in light of the stakes. Is your current financial advisor truly adding value beyond a doubt? I repeat, is your current financial advisor truly adding value? It's a valid question, as a friendship or just relationship allows you not to be in a position to ask those critical questions. Are you talking about taxes? Are you talking about Social Security and income and risk and diversification and insurance and estate planning and healthcare? Are you having those annual reviews? But hopefully it's more frequently than that. Is there detailed follow-up? Is there accountability? If you are, if all of that is happening, congratulations, because you've got a great relationship, and send your financial advisor a thank you. But if you're not having that, if you're not feeling the value, if you're not having those in-depth conversations, then you owe it to yourself and really to your family to have a conversation with someone else, because if you don't, you're the one that's going to suffer. You're the one that's going to pay the cost, and it'll cost you in more ways than you'll ever know. Let us prove to you how we can help your money go further in retirement. Let us show you with our financial physical. I believe you'll be surprised at what you'll learn, and this won't cost you anything. Give us a call or send us a text to 520-333-7601, 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601. Or check us out online at savingwithsilverman.com. That's savingwithsilverman.com. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601. Making smarter choices about your money does impact the quality of your life, and a smart choice you can make right now is calling that number or texting to that number, 520-333-7601. That'll put you in touch with Silverman and Associates in Tucson. And Mark Silverman, of course, certified financial planner professional, the founder and the managing member of Silverman and Associates. One more time, and that number, 520-333-7601. Call or send a text, and then you can come in for a visit. I'm Ron Stutz, along with Mark Silverman. And Mark, it's been a pleasure hanging out with you for an hour today.
Ron, always happy to be here. I want to thank you for listening to the show. And remember, nothing happens until you actually make a call or send us a text. Procrastination is probably the biggest issue that I see most people have, because they don't do something or they wait too long to do something.
Join us again next time for the next edition of Saving with Silverman.
Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC is a registered investment advisor. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities product, service, or investment strategy. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Be sure to first consult with a qualified advisor, tax professional, or attorney before implementing any strategy or recommendation discussed herein.